The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, 17 minutes past dawn, when the coffee was still bitter and the world still held that peculiar silence that comes before humanity fully awakens. Commander Elena Torres stood at the observation deck of Luna Station, watching Earth turn lazily below, unaware that everything was about to change. The transmission crackled through the ancient speakers, a voice speaking perfect, if oddly cadenced English. "Greetings, inhabitants of Sol 3. We are the Galactic Assembly. Your species has been observed. You are interesting." Elena's coffee mug shattered against the deck plating. 3 months of first contact protocols, and it happened while she was in her pajamas. The alien, who introduced himself simply as Kren, appeared on every screen, across human space simultaneously. Tall, graceful, with skin that shifted between blue and silver like mercury, he delivered humanity's verdict with the casual indifference of a teacher grading papers. "Your species shows remarkable persistence," Kren continued, his voice carrying undertones that made universal translators hum with strain. "Despite your obvious limitations, single planet, primitive fusion technology, laughably short lifespans, you have achieved something unprecedented." Elena found herself leaning forward, along with every other human listening across the solar system. "You have survived your own violence. This is worthy." The pause stretched long enough for Elena to wonder if the transmission had failed. "The Assembly has decided. You will be granted membership in the galactic community. One world, one vote, one chance to prove you belong among the civilized species of this galaxy." The screen flickered, showing star maps that made Elena's head spin. Thousands upon thousands of systems, connected by trade routes and communication networks that spanned unimaginable distances. Your assigned territory, the Sol system. Your responsibilities: remain within your borders, maintain peace, contribute to galactic stability through trade and cultural exchange. Your restrictions: expansion beyond Sol is forbidden until further evaluation. Elena felt her heart sink. Humanity had dreamed of the stars for millennia, and now they were being told to stay home. Violation of these terms will result in immediate termination of membership and appropriate sanctions. The Assembly has spoken. The transmission ended with a soft chime that somehow sounded final. For exactly 17 seconds, Luna Station remained silent. Then the communication arrays exploded with activity as every human outpost, colony ship, and deep space probe began screaming questions across the void. Elena stared at the now blank screen, her mind racing. One planet, one system, the greatest gift and greatest prison humanity had ever received, wrapped in the same cosmic decree. But as she watched Earth continue its ancient rotation, something flickered in her chest, not despair, but something far more dangerous. Something that had driven her species from caves to stars in the blink of an evolutionary eye. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. HFY Chronicle Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi, tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. Elena smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. The aliens had given humanity one planet and told them to stay put. They clearly hadn't done their homework on what happened. When you told humans they couldn't have something, the galaxy was about to learn why humanity had survived their own violence. 6 months after first contact, the Martian colonies were buzzing with an energy that had nothing to do with atmospheric processors. Elena had traded her commander's uniform for civilian clothes and a new title, Director of Human Advancement Initiative. It sounded official enough to fool bureaucrats and vague enough to hide what they were really doing. The workshop stretched across 3 levels of New Geneva's industrial sector, filled with machinery that hummed with barely contained power. Tech samples, gifted by the Galactic Assembly, lined every workbench. Communication devices, Power cells, navigation computers all examined, dissected, and quietly reverse-engineered by the most brilliant human minds Elena could recruit. "Show me what you've found," Elena said to Dr. Marcus Webb, formerly of MIT, now of humanity's most classified research division. Marcus gestured to a gleaming device no larger than Elena's thumb. "This is their standard long-range communicator. Quantum, entanglement-based, instantaneous transmission across galactic distances. According to their documentation, it should be impossible for us to understand the underlying principles." "Should be?" Marcus grinned. "They underestimated human stubbornness. We can't replicate the quantum matrices yet, but we understand the theory. Give us 5 years, and we'll have our own version." Elena nodded, moving to the next station where a young engineer named Lisa Park was elbow-deep in what looked like controlled chaos. "The navigation computer is even more interesting," Lisa called out, not looking up from her work. "It's running on principles that make our most advanced AI look like a pocket calculator. But here's the thing, it's designed for beings with completely different neural structures. It's actually inefficient for human cognition patterns." "Meaning?" "Meaning, we can do better. Their technology is like a universal key designed to work for anyone, but not optimized for anyone specific. Human tech has always been specialized, focused, ruthlessly efficient for our specific needs." Elena felt that familiar flutter of anticipation. "How much better?" Lisa finally looked up, her eyes bright with discovery. "Potentially, orders of magnitude. Their star charts assume linear thinking patterns. Human creativity is chaotic, intuitive. We see patterns they miss because we think differently." Across the workshop, similar discoveries were happening at every station. Faster-than-light communication that humans could improve upon. Energy systems that could be streamlined. Weapons technology that was sophisticated but predictable, clearly designed by species that fought wars like chess matches rather than the adaptive improvisational style that had defined human conflict for millennia. "Director," a voice called from the far end of the lab. Elena turned to see Dr. Sarah Kim waving her over to a massive holographic display, showing star charts that stretched across the visible galaxy. "We've been analyzing their territorial boundaries," Sarah explained, highlighting various regions. "In different colors. Each species seems to have very defined, very static borders. Trade happens along established routes. Expansion follows predictable patterns. And they've left gaps. Huge ones. Systems that are marked as unsuitable or hazardous, that appear to be perfectly habitable by human standards. High radiation zones that would be lethal to their biologies, but manageable with our radiation resistance. Worlds with atmospheric compositions that match what our terraforming technology can handle." Elena studied the map, seeing not restrictions, but opportunities. "They're not monitoring these regions. Why would they? No civilized species would want them. They're death. Traps for anyone with normal galactic biology. But not for humans." "Not for humans," Sarah confirmed. Elena stepped back, looking at the bustling workshop with new eyes. 6 months ago, humanity had been told to stay in their corner of the galaxy like well-behaved children. Now they were discovering that their limitations were actually advantages. Their primitive technology was potentially superior in specific applications, and the galaxy was full of empty spaces that only humans could fill. "How long before we can build our own quantum communicators?" she asked Marcus. 18 months for prototypes. 3 years for mass production. Navigation systems? 2 years, Lisa replied. Maybe less if we stop trying to copy their approach and just build better ones from scratch. Elena looked back at the star charts, at all those empty systems waiting for someone crazy enough to claim them. The Galactic Assembly had given humanity one planet and told them to be grateful. They had no idea what they'd just unleashed. The first human colony ship to leave. Sol System wasn't registered with any government. didn't appear on any official manifest and technically didn't exist. Elena stood in its cramped bridge, watching the stars wheel past at velocities that should have been impossible for human technology. Quantum fold drive operating at 97% efficiency, reported Captain Jake Morrison, a former Navy pilot who'd volunteered for humanity's first illegal expedition. We'll reach the Kepler 447 system in 6 days. Any sign of assembly monitoring? Nothing. We're running completely dark, no standard transponders, no regulation communication protocols. As far as the galaxy knows, we're space debris. Elena nodded, studying the tactical display. Kepler 447 was one of dozens of systems marked as hazardous on assembly charts: high radiation, unstable stellar output, atmospheric compositions that would be toxic to most galactic species. Perfect for humans who'd already survived ice ages, supervolcano eruptions, and their own nuclear weapons. The past 2 years had been a whirlwind of secret development. Human engineers had indeed created their own quantum communication network, but they'd done something the Assembly had never considered, made it completely separate from galactic networks. Humanity was building its own internet in the stars, invisible to the established powers. "Director," called out Dr. Webb from the science station. "We're getting detailed scans of the target system now. 3 potentially habitable worlds, 2 gas giants perfect for fuel harvesting, and an asteroid belt rich in rare elements. Any signs of previous colonization?" "None. The radiation levels alone would have sterilized any conventional colony attempt within months." Elena smiled grimly. Conventional by galactic standards meant species that had evolved in stable, protected environments. Humans had evolved on a planet that regularly tried to kill them through climate change, volcanic activity, cosmic radiation, and a dozen other disasters. What was lethal to the galaxy was merely challenging to humanity. "Ma'am," Captain Morrison interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission. It's not from Earth." Elena's blood chilled. "Assembly forces?" "No, ma'am, it's human, another ship." The main screen flickered, revealing a face Elena recognized: Commander Tom Park, formerly of the European Space Coalition, now apparently commanding his own rogue colony mission. "Elena, good to see you're not the only one who got impatient with our galactic babysitters." Tom's voice crackled through their improvised communication system. "Tom, what the hell are you doing out here?" "Same thing you are, I'd imagine. We launched from Titan 3 weeks ago, heading for the Wolf system. Figured if we're going to get in trouble with the Assembly, might as well make it worth their while." Elena laughed despite herself. Of course, humanity's first venture into illegal space expansion would involve multiple unauthorized missions, launched simultaneously by different groups. That was exactly the kind of chaotic, uncoordinated, thoroughly human approach that had gotten them this far. "How many others?" she asked. "At least 7 ships that we know of, maybe more. The underground communication network has been buzzing with activity. Turns out telling humans they can't go somewhere is a really effective way to make sure they go there." Over the next several hours, reports filtered in from across human space. Colony ships were launching from hidden bases throughout the solar system, each targeting different forbidden systems, each using technology that shouldn't have existed according to galactic science. Dr. Webb compiled the reports with obvious glee. "At current rate of expansion, we'll have human colonies in 47 systems within the next 5 years. All of them in territories the Assembly considers worthless or dangerous." "And they won't notice?" Elena asked. "Why would they look? We're using communication frequencies they can't detect, establishing colonies in places they'd never survive. And doing it all with technology they think we're too primitive to possess." Elena stared at the star charts again, but now instead of seeing restrictions, she saw the birth of something unprecedented. Humanity wasn't just expanding, They were evolving into something the galaxy had never encountered. A species that thrived in the places others feared, that built better technology by ignoring established limitations. That turned isolation into independence. The Assembly had tried to contain humanity to one planet. Instead, they'd given them motivation to claim an empire. Ambassador Kren stood in the Assembly's primary briefing chamber, his skin cycling through increasingly agitated color patterns as he stared at the holographic display. The presentation had been running for 3 hours, and each new slide made the situation worse. "Explain to me again," said High Coordinator Vex, her tentacles writhing with barely controlled anger, "how a species we classified as technologically primitive has established colonies in 47 systems without our knowledge, Kren's aide." A nervous Quilarian named Zeth manipulated the display with trembling appendages. "The humans appear to have developed quantum communication technology that operates on completely different principles from established galactic standards. Their networks are invisible to our monitoring systems." Invisible? The word came from Senior Military Advisor Torque, whose armored carapace was radiating heat signatures that indicated combat readiness. "Nothing is invisible to Assembly surveillance. Nevertheless," Zeth continued, "their expansion appears to have been ongoing for approximately 3 standard years. They've colonized systems we marked as uninhabitable high radiation zones, chemically hostile atmospheres, gravitationally unstable regions." Vex's tentacles stilled, which was somehow more ominous than their previous agitation. "Show me their territorial map." The display shifted, revealing the true scope of human expansion. What had once been a single yellow dot representing Sol System was now connected to dozens of other systems by glowing green lines. Human space, carved out of regions the Assembly had written off as worthless. "By the sacred protocols," Vex whispered. "They're not following standard expansion patterns." Kren had reached the same conclusion, and it terrified him. Every species in galactic history had expanded predictably, claiming the most valuable systems first, establishing trade routes along established safe passages, building outward from their homeworlds in logical defensive patterns. Humans had done none of that. Instead, they'd claimed territories specifically because they were dangerous. They built their empire in the shadows and gaps of galactic civilization, in places where no one else would look because no one else could survive there. "Military assessment," Vex demanded. Torque's response came without hesitation. "Unknown. Their technology appears to be based on completely different principles from our databases. Standard tactical analysis is impossible, meaning we have no idea what their capabilities are. They could be using weapon systems we've never encountered, defensive technologies we can't predict, communication networks we can't intercept." The briefing chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. Finally, Vex spoke again. "How did our intelligence services miss this?" Kren's skin had settled into a deep purple that indicated profound embarrassment. "We may have underestimated human psychology. Our analysts assumed they would respond to territorial restrictions the way civilized species do, with acceptance and gradual adaptation. And instead, they appear to have interpreted restrictions as suggestions to be ignored." Another long silence. Then Senior Coordinator Nath, who had remained quiet throughout the briefing, spoke for the first time. "Show me the economic projections." Zeth manipulated the controls, and new data flowed across the display. Trade routes, resource extraction, energy production, all the metrics the Assembly used to measure galactic civilization. The numbers were staggering. Human space is now producing 43% more energy per system than the galactic average, Zeth reported. Their resource extraction rates are unprecedented, and their trade networks appear to be completely self-sufficient. Self-sufficient? Nath leaned forward, her crystalline features refracting the display light into prismatic patterns. "They're not trading with the rest of the galaxy," at all. They've built their own economy, their own infrastructure, their own everything. Vex's tentacles began moving again, but slowly, thoughtfully. They're not expanding into our territory. They're building their own territory, in places we can't go. The implications hung in the chamber like a toxic cloud. Humanity wasn't challenging the assembly directly, they were making the assembly irrelevant. They'd taken the galaxy's unwanted spaces and turned them into the foundation of their own civilization. Recommendations? Vex asked finally. Torque's response was immediate. Military intervention. Forced compliance with territorial restrictions. With what? Nath interjected. We can't operate in their chosen territories. Our fleets would be destroyed by the same environmental factors that we assumed would contain them. Kren found his voice again. Perhaps diplomatic engagement. Negotiation? With a species that has spent 3 years ignoring our authority? Vex's tentacles coiled tightly. I think not. The debate continued, but Kren was no longer listening. He was staring at the display, at the map that showed human space growing like a virus through the galaxy's forgotten corners. The assembly had given humanity one planet and expected gratitude. Instead, they'd created something unprecedented in galactic history, a civilization that didn't need anyone's permission to exist. 20-5 years after first contact, Elena Torres stood on the observation deck of humanity's newest achievement, New Geneva Station, orbiting the double star system of Kepler-93. The view was spectacular. Twin suns casting rainbow shadows across 7 human-controlled worlds, each one thriving in conditions that would have meant death for any other known species. She was older now, grayer, but her eyes still held that dangerous spark that had driven humanity's first steps into forbidden space. Today was special today. The Galactic Assembly was finally coming to visit. Director, called Captain Morrison, now Admiral Morrison and commander of humanity's first official contact fleet. Assembly ships are dropping out of Quantum Fold. 12 vessels, heavy escort configuration. Elena smiled. Nervous, are they? Apparently. Their formation suggests they're expecting either a diplomatic reception or a shooting war. They'll get neither, Elena replied. Ready the presentation? The past 2.5 decades had transformed humanity from a single system species into something unprecedented. Not the largest galactic power, that honor still belonged to the Assembly, but certainly the most unique. Human space now encompassed over 200 systems, all of them in territories the rest of the galaxy still considered uninhabitable. But more importantly, humanity had evolved. The doors to the observation deck hissed open, and Ambassador Kren entered, flanked by a full diplomatic escort. His skin was cycling through patterns. Elena had learned to read as extreme caution mixed with grudging respect. Ambassador, Elena said pleasantly, welcome to human space. I trust your journey wasn't too uncomfortable. Kren's translator device made soft clicking sounds before producing his response. Director Torres, your expansion has been noticed by the Assembly. I should hope so. We've been rather hard to miss lately. That was an understatement. Human merchant fleets now traded with 17 species that had never heard of the Assembly. Human exploration vessels had mapped stellar regions that galactic cartographers had marked as permanently inaccessible. Human colonies produced exotic materials that had become essential to a dozen interstellar economies. The Assembly Council has authorized me to discuss adjustments to your territorial agreements. Kren continued. Elena gestured toward the massive viewport. You mean the agreements that restricted us to one system? The ones we've been ignoring for a quarter century? The Assembly acknowledges that human expansion has proceeded beyond initial parameters. How diplomatic of you. Elena touched a control panel, and the view shifted to display a 3-dimensional map of local space. Human territories glowed blue. Assembly space showed in traditional white. And the spaces between, once marked as uninhabitable, now blazed with the colors of a dozen different human settlements. "We want to make you an offer," Kren said finally. "I'm listening. Full assembly membership, expanded territorial recognition, trade agreements, cultural exchange programs, military alliance protocols." Elena considered the proposal. It was everything humanity had supposedly wanted 25 years ago: acceptance, legitimacy, a place at the galactic table. And in return, integration, standardization. Your technology would be evaluated and regulated according to galactic safety protocols. Your expansion would follow established patterns. Your colonies would be subject to assembly oversight. Elena's smile widened. "You want us to become civilized. We want you to become ... predictable." The observation deck fell silent except for the distant hum of the station systems. Finally, Elena spoke. "Ambassador, let me show you something." She manipulated the display controls, and the view shifted again. Now it showed not just human space, but the entire local galactic region. Thousands of star systems, hundreds of species, the vast network of civilization that the assembly had spent millennia building. "Do you see the pattern?" Elena asked. Kren studied the display. "I see established territories, trade networks, defensive perimeters." "You see stagnation," Elena corrected. "Every species in assembly space has been in the same territories for centuries. Same trade routes, same technologies, same limitations. The galaxy has been ... stable. Stability is valuable. Stability is death." Elena's voice carried the weight of human history: species that had survived ice ages by adapting, that had reached the stars by refusing to accept limitations. "You offered us one planet and expected us to be grateful. Instead, we took the spaces you were afraid to explore and made them into something new." She gestured again, and the display zoomed out further, showing regions beyond even human expansion, vast areas of space marked as unexplored or hazardous. "The galaxy is huge, Ambassador. Bigger than the assembly has ever imagined. And it's full of wonders that your civilized species will never see because you're too comfortable, too safe, too ... predictable." Kren's skin had shifted to patterns Elena couldn't read. "Are you refusing our offer?" "I'm making you a counter-offer," Elena replied. "We'll share our technology. We'll open our trade routes. We'll even cooperate on scientific research. But we won't integrate. We won't standardize. And we won't stop expanding into places you think are impossible." She turned back to the viewport, where the twin suns were casting their eternal rainbow across human worlds. "You gave us one planet, Ambassador. We used it to build a map of places you never dreamed existed. The galaxy is bigger than you know, stranger than you imagine, and full of opportunities that only come to species crazy enough to take them." Elena smiled one last time. "Humanity is just getting started." Outside the viewport, human ships moved between the stars, carrying colonists and dreamers and explorers toward worlds that existed only because someone had been foolish enough to think the impossible was merely improbable. The galaxy would never be the same.